Robinson. I'm the president of the Thunder Bay Chamber of Commerce. Real pleasure to welcome you all here today for what I know will be an amazing discussion from some experts in our region. So we begin by acknowledging that the City of Thunder Bay is built on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe peoples of Fort William First Nation, signatories to the Robinson Superior Treaty of 1850, and we recognize the significant contributions of the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people to our heritage, social, cultural, spiritual, and economic wealth. The Chamber of Commerce is committed to a relationship with Indigenous peoples that is grounded on the principles of mutual trust, respect, reciprocity, and collaboration in a spirit of reconciliation. I want to thank our event sponsor today, Crestview Strategies. Thank you so much for sponsoring this great luncheon. Jordan is here, and you're going to get to know him as he's going to moderate the session in a few minutes. I'd also like to acknowledge some of the special guests in attendance. Our two elected officials are actually both our panelists, so there'll be a full intro later, but I just want to acknowledge we have Band Councillor Peter Collins from Fort William First Nation and Mayor Wendy Landry from the municipality of Shunia. Thank you so much for being here. And then from our board of directors, Renee Gallant from Synergy North, hiding over in the corner. Jamie Nichols from Rosencrantz Roasting Company in the other corner, and Stephanie Pichot from TBT Engineering, probably in a corner somewhere as well. There she is. Thank you all for being here. So I'm going to hand the microphone over to Jordan from Crestview Strategies, and he will be the host of our panel discussion. Jordan.
Wow, okay, that is a warm introduction. Thank you so much to everyone for coming out today. Okay, so two things from my end. I promise to do as little talking as possible. I'm not the important people in the room today, our three panelists, and you are. But on that note, the second thing that I would like to just quickly cover, I feel would help orient this conversation today, would be an introduction from myself. My name is Jordan Hugima. Professionally, I have been a consultant with Crestview Strategy for about over 3.5 years now. I'm joined by my colleague Rob, who is incidentally taking a video of me right now. Crestview, an amazing firm. I'd love to be able to connect with you after the event today to tell you a little bit about us, but the elevator pitch is that we are a fully integrated public affairs firm with offices that span across Canada. We have a growing presence also in Australia, the Middle East, as well as the United Kingdom. Through a personal lens, though, I have now been living back in my hometown of Thunder Bay for the past 2.5 years. I spent 18 years in Toronto. Yes, please don't hold that against me. When I originally left Thunder Bay at the spry age of 16, I promise you that I had my head so far up my you-know-what that I thought I was never going to be back in Thunder Bay. Screw that place. But over those 18 years, I realized how much of a proud Northern Ontarian I am. And I think the absolute manifestation of being able now to lay down roots with my wife is that we will be expecting our first child, my son, at the end of July. Now, I don't say that for a round of applause. I do say that because I think that that is a great transition into the topic of conversation that we are going to have today. Because when I think of 10, 20 years down the road of my son and the life that he has ahead of him, the space that he will take up and fulfill in our labor market, I believe that the conversation that we're about to have today is really foundational, laying some of the groundwork for the opportunities that he will have ahead of himself. So with that, I would love to introduce our speakers today. So keeping with ladies first, I would like to welcome Mayor Wendy Landry. So for those of you who are not familiar with Wendy, Wendy was born in
Who's that person?
Wendy was born in Nipissing, Ontario, a member of Red Rock Indian Band, and has deep roots across northwestern Ontario. After moving to Thunder Bay to attend Confederation College, she built a remarkable career spanning public service, education, and the private sector. She spent 20 years working in corrections, taught for a decade at Confederation College as a sessional and part-time faculty member, and later moved to senior roles in Indigenous and municipal relations at Union Gas and Enbridge. Wendy is also widely recognized for her extraordinary record of community leadership and volunteer service. She has contributed she contributes as well to numerous boards and committees, including the Nagonawan, thank you, Wendy, Council, Confederation College Program Advisory Committees, and Confederation College's Board of Governors. I'm going to leave it there because if I was to list all of them, we would probably take up the rest of the session and name them. She has received multiple leadership awards and remains a passionate advocate for both Confederation College and Northwestern Ontario. Please join me in welcoming Wendy Landry. All right, next up we have Charles Sertwell, President and CEO of the Northern Policy Institute. Charles joined Northern Policy Institute in 2013 as its founding president and CEO. Under his leadership, the Institute has become Northern Ontario's independent, evidence-driven think tank, helping shape conversations on the economic and social policy issues that matter most to the region. Over the past decade, Charles has provided leadership on a wide range of issues central to the future of the North, including immigration, reconciliation, transportation, regional governance, demographics, and economic growth. His career has spanned the private and public sectors, and as well as not-for-profit, giving him a broad and practical perspective on the policy challenges facing communities and businesses alike. He's also spent more than 30 years in public and community leadership roles, serving organizations such as the Institute of Public Administration of Canada, Scouts Canada, the Royal Ontario Institute, and the Mowat Centre, among many others. Charles studied at Dalhousie University, where he earned degrees in political science, law, and public administration, with a focus on assessing public policy and programs. So with that, Charles brings a data-informed and deeply regional perspective to today's conversation. Please join me in welcoming Charles. And finally, we have our third speaker, Peter Collins, Chief Executive Officer of Chi-Minnow Wet'suwet'en. Peter is a respected Anishinaabe leader from Fort William First Nation, whose career has been defined by decades of service to his community and to First Nation leadership across the region. He served for 9 years as Regional Grand Chief of Northern Superior Region, and for an extraordinary 22 years as Chief of Fort William First Nation, a testament to the trust placed in him and his long-standing commitment to advocacy, governance, and community advancement. Throughout his career, Peter has brought his leadership to a wide range of organizations, including the Anishinaabe Nation, the Liko Anishinaabe Family Care, the LP Bamkushvada, and the Boralaskan Faculty of Law Aboriginal Advisory Committee. He has also contributed nationally through the Assembly of First Nations Chiefs Committee on Economic Development, helping advance economic opportunity for First Nations communities. Since September 2022, Peter has also has served as CEO of Chi-Minnow Wet'suwet'en, where he leads a partnership of 7 First Nation communities involved in the Waasigan Transmission Line project. In that role, he is helping drive practical outcomes in training, employment, procurement, and environmental stewardship, with the focus on ensuring long-term benefits for participating communities. So with that, please allow me to introduce Peter Collins.
And they didn't give me a mic, so we're good.
thank you to you three. The combined years of commitment to our community is incredibly humbling. Our objective today, what we hope that everyone in the room gets out of, will be some actionable insights to navigate the current labor shortage by leveraging regional data, educational pipelines, and First Nations-led economic partnerships. So, we've kind of broken up today's conversation into three parts. The first part will address the current landscape. So let's orient ourselves a little and talk about just that, the current landscape. So, Wendy, we'll start with you. Confederation College is a core economic driver and workforce enabler for our region. From your perspective, how is the college evolving its Indigenous learning outcomes and contract training to ensure students aren't just graduating, but they're ready to step into specific roles our local industries are desperate to fill?
Yeah, thanks, Jordan. I have notes because there's so many things for me to stay on track with, and anybody who knows me knows that I tend to veer off left and then right, so I want to make sure that I capture everything. But, you know, Confederation College, and many of you have heard me say this on numerous occasions, but we are the conduit to the business and the economic drivers that are here in Thunder Bay and the region as we speak. We're meeting always with industry, with different business owners and different leaders that are looking to come into the area to develop their businesses, to work on the projects that they have. Through our Indigenous learning piece, we were having this conversation yesterday in another meeting too, is that if there are two students taking courses side by side and they're going to be competing with each other for jobs and opportunities, what is it that sets them apart from the person that they're competing with for that role? And we believe it to be Indigenous learning. Not only is Indigenous learning the right thing to do for the area that we live in, as a First Nations woman, I believe that all Canadians need to have that Indigenous perspective and some grounding in learning. But at the college, we are implementing our Indigenous learning outcomes and weaving them throughout all of our programs. So for example, let's say in our flight management program, a lot of times our potential pilots and future pilots will say, why am I taking Indigenous learning? And I've taught in that program in the past, and I've said, where do you think your first job's going to be? Are you going straight to Air Canada? Or are you going to go on Bearskin or Wasaya? And what is the best opportunity to get a role with those companies if you have Indigenous learning in your portfolio and in your resume? Because to learn the cultural aspects of flying to the First Nations that are in those communities is to know little things, little cultural awareness pieces, like why is eye contact not a natural thing for Indigenous people? Those little tidbits that will give you that competitive edge when you're out there applying for work. So we have the 7 principles of our Indigenous learning outcomes that we're weaving into all of our programs at the college. And also, we are the first college in Ontario, out of 24 colleges, to launch our Indigenous Reconciliation Action Plan. And if you haven't had a chance to take a look at it, please do. And what that is it includes our external commitments with different pillars of how we are going to implement reconciliation within all aspects of the college. So not only through our Indigenous learning outcomes, but through our commitments, whether it's HR hiring practices or procurement practices and all of those opportunities, we are making an external commitment in that piece as well. And I'd also like to take a minute to give a shout out to our contract training team. Many of you know Carol Klein and Jason Oswald that are in the room today. They have extensive and amazing relationships with our First Nations and with business and with companies. And we are often that first stop for businesses. We just had a meeting with one of the project folks that are looking to build the processing plant in the area. And they came to visit us at the college. And within a few minutes, he was amazed by the contacts and the relationships, and that we can help not only design specific training for whatever the needs are of that company, but also include the Indigenous relationships piece, and that we can help be that conduit to whatever it is that they need there. So we're delivering training that suits not only the learners, so that they come out as a diversified learner and have that competitive edge when they're out looking for work, but also to be a good partner with our business owners and with industry, as we know that we're on the cusp of thousands of jobs, not only that are available today, but that are going to be available in the next 3 to 5 years. That's 3 pages in one.
I should have had you next to me so I could slide over and maybe like nudge you on the toe when we're going over time. But no, that's great. Thank you so much, Wendy, for that perspective. And I think it's certainly not lost on anyone in the room the important work that Confederation College is doing for our community and region every single day. So to maybe follow up on that, then this one would be for you, Charles. So MPI often talks about the demographic crunch in Northern Ontario. So for business owners in the room, what are the 2 to 3 most critical labor trends they need to understand to stay competitive over the next few years and into the future?
Okay, so number one, I get 22 minutes, right? That's how long Wendy talked for. Let's start with a couple of observations. First off, and I know you asked me for short term, but let's talk about the reality in the room. Is that congratulations on the upcoming child. The simple fact is that 50 years ago, that would have been the first of many. 25 years ago, it probably would have been the first of 2. Today, that's probably it. And so everybody here who's employing people understands what that means. That means that today's labor shortage is only going to get worse tomorrow. So that's trend number one, and that's an observation. The second thing I'd note this, and again, it's not a trend so much as it's a personal hobby horse of mine. If you listen to CBC in the morning as I do, don't believe anything they have to say about the labor market unless they're quoting Livio's talking about it or Carl Skogstad's talking, somebody from the north. If they're interviewing somebody from U of T or wherever they are and they're talking about the Canadian labor market, it does not apply to us. So if you're listening to that and you're getting hopeful and you're saying, yeah, there's unemployment spiked and there's a labor surplus now and I can stop having to worry about raising wages and figuring out new and innovative ways to go in and find these workers. Sorry, the bad news is that doesn't apply to you. So the trends in terms of the labor market are going to be pretty straightforward. Your workers are going to continue to age because many of them can't afford to retire. And what that means then, of course, is that your younger workers are going to continue to struggle to find opportunities to build and grow their skills and capacities, which means the people to take over, the people in your middle manager jobs are going to be even harder to find than they have been up till now. When we did our pre-preparation conversation for this, I really got the impression that I was living up to my nickname of Eeyore, in that I was bringing bad news. And alas, I have nothing but bad news for employers. Yes, we currently have spiked unemployment, but even in Thunder Bay, the unemployment for youth is 11.6%. And our average over the last 30 years has been around 8%. So when a provincial minister comes in and announces to me, as happened at NOMA, that we're dealing with a 20% unemployment rate, I'm like, what planet are you from? Because it's not here. And so what that means is that we're going to have challenges. And so it's going to be harder and harder for employers to resource and bring people in. And that's when the things that Wendy's talking about in terms of Indigenous cultural sensitization, Indigenous practices in the workplace being welcoming to the population and the workers who are here is going to become more and more important. So when I hear about the college doing all of this kind of training and instruction for the potential workers, I also encourage you as employers to do the same thing. Because that hard work is going to make you attractive when it comes time to attract people. Now I know Jordan's going to ask me about retention later, so I hope he does, but I'm going to remind him now so I can stop talking.
All right, thanks for that, Charles. And you're absolutely right. Well, if I had my way, we would only be having 1. Jaded wanted 4, my wife. So
Population growth.
we landed on 2, that's the plan. So we're still bucking the trend. So next one is for you, Peter, and maybe just to kind of pick up on what Charles was just saying a moment ago about being mindful of the population that is here. We often talk about a brain drain in the north, but we have a growing young Indigenous population. So the question is our regional business community doing enough to view this demographic as the primary solution? And maybe it doesn't need to be the primary, but let's frame it as that, the primary solution to our labor challenges.
So thank you for that question, Jordan. Haven't come prepared like Wendy, and you can tell Charles and I are the papers from.
You can't see her, no.
I'm keeping the paper mills and
But just to answer your question, you look at we're the fastest growing demographic in the region here right now, and you look at the population of house growing in Thunder Bay, it's a lot burden, or not a lot from indigenous growth in the city of Thunder Bay, and you look at how they're migrating to Thunder Bay for opportunity. And you look at those opportunities, what are they? They come here for school and education and jobs and homes, and they end up with so many challenges. And this is what we want our industry to understand. Reaching out and respecting them, because they come from home, they left their place there they were comfortable at. They're coming to an urban setting. A lot of them don't understand the urban setting. So really building that relationship and trusting what they have done, and trusting what they can do, and respecting what they can do, and also respecting having an understanding about the dilemmas and the trials and tribulations of life from where they come from in their communities. And it's so important to build that relationship, build that comfort. As I tell everybody in my journey as a chief and now as a CEO, I build friendship first, then we do business after that. If you build that friendship with people that are coming into the city and understanding them and really building that relationship, then you can integrate them into what you're doing. And that's the challenge that we face all the time. As somebody looks at you, talks to you, and because go to Wendy's point, they're sitting there, they're talking, but not looking directly at you. Perking them up and propping them up and making sure that they understand that they are valuable. They're a valuable asset to any company. You look at what's happening in the region now and all the activity, there's so much jobs and opportunities, and there's just going to be endless jobs and opportunities as the industry grows in the mining sector, the forestry sector. The forestry, I know, is taking a little bit of a beating right now, but as always, there's a trend down and that trend's back up. So there's endless opportunities that grow in Northwestern Ontario. And where is all those opportunities? They're in the backyards of our communities. And our folks need to be beneficiaries to that. We need to help educate them, prepare them for being away from their homes. So it's so critical to understand that. And if we want to have that strong relationship, build friendship with those communities first.
Yeah, thanks for that, Peter. And I think I'm reflecting on some remarks. This may have been remarks that you delivered, Wendy, at NOMA recently. It was important. It's important to always have a friend before you need one. So really, picking up on what Peter's saying there in terms of building relationships. Okay, so let's shift the conversation a little bit and talk about how SMEs in our region can actually win in a tight labor market by being seen as an employer of choice for Indigenous workers. Peter, I'm going to ask Wendy to give the mic back to you. For small and medium-sized, and I think this is a great segue from what you were just touching on, for small and medium-sized business owners in the room, or that you might have a few words for, who are struggling to hire, what makes a company competitive to an Indigenous job seeker today? Is it just the wage? Is it about culture, flexibility, community connection?
Well, it's kind of a combination of a lot of different things. I mean, accommodation is one, and that's something that the industry has to understand. Accommodating members that travel from within their communities and travel into urban settings. Understanding how they can accommodate them, but like building the opportunity and building it together is an integral part of what they do. If we look at the industry, and I'll go back to my earlier comments, the industry's developing in Northwestern Ontario and throughout the region and throughout Canada, but they're building on the backs of our communities, and that's so integral to help integrate our folks into the opportunities. What we do at Chimino Ojibwe is train and prepare people and help them integrate into companies and building that relationship with companies so they understand what we can do to help support our folks that come from our northern communities or remote communities, even if they're living in urban settings right now, to help integrate them into the opportunity. We try to develop really good people to take on the responsibility of opportunities being built in their backyard. Likewise, that's what the industry has to do. When the industry posts a job, they post it in their corporate world. Well, how is that reaching out to the communities? You know, our communities work off Facebook, Augustin Telegraph, just to get the message out, you know, and I think it's so important that industry really understands that so that they have a way to connect with our community and connect in advance of the opportunities being brought forward. That way there, the communities can prepare their folks to take it on these real-time opportunities. You know, the wage is always important. You know, every young person that you talk to, they're not, am I getting $25 an hour? That's their question. You know, and the reality is, likely you're not starting at 25, but the job I'm on right now, they start at $38 an hour or something. So in the EPCA world, it's really good opportunities. And I think the other side of my message on the EPCA world, you know, making young people understand what a pension is and what unions do and what they can help you with and how they can help you long term. You look at myself, 20-some years as a politician, can't retire because I got no pension. So that's why I'm still working.
That's great. Thank you for that insight, Peter. Okay, Wendy, so this one's for you. So we often see a mismatch where businesses say they can't find workers. So some of what Peter was just alluding to. And on the flip side, Indigenous communities say they can't find the right opportunities. So to that end, how can businesses better bridge the gap and leverage Confederation College as a resource?
Yeah, thank you. And to Peter's point too, what we want to make sure that everyone is concentrating on is building capacity, right? Building capacity within the people of our First Nations, building capacity in our, when I say our people, I mean all of us, but I mean specifically our First Nations young people, right? We are the fastest growing demographic. And those communities, because our communities haven't had the opportunity to build capacity and be competitive in our communities. So with the college being a conduit, I love it. As Jordan introduced me, you know, I've been involved in the college for a long time as a part-time teacher, on the advisory board, on the board of governors, and then back there now in this role. But what I love about the college is just that, the having friends before you need them. We are a friend to the First Nations, and I love telling the stories that I hear from our contract training team, taking the plumbing materials, taking the carpentry materials on the flights, on the ice roads to go into community, because they didn't necessarily need Red Seal plumbers, but they needed to learn plumbing. So they took the toilets and the tools that up into the communities and go into our communities rather than demanding that the communities come into the college. It doesn't need to be that way. It can be tailored to whatever needs you need as a business looking for hiring Indigenous people. So when we talk about our First Nations and building those capacities within our communities, it's looking at transferable skills. One of the things that I did when I was with Enbridge and we were working on the HR department is take a look at your HR practices. They are barriers right off the top, from where Peter said where you're posting your jobs. Where you're posting your jobs, almost every, I think Carol and Jason would agree with me that almost every company that comes to college says, I need to hire Indigenous people. Alstom said the same thing to us. We need to hire Indigenous people. But where are you posting your jobs? What does your job posting look like? Are you attracting Indigenous people? Have you added an indigeneity or indigenized lens to your posting? Those kind of trainings and those kind of lenses offer you a far better return on your investment than just saying, I posted a job and I got no Indigenous people applying. And you have to look at those practices. You have to take a step back and look around at all the things that you are doing. And that's where the college plays a really critical role, in that we are not just about post-secondary education. Obviously that's a big part of our business, the post-secondary piece where we can tailor and answer the labor force needs. But where contract training comes into play is the distance education, the continuing education, the specified training that you need as a company of where you need to go in 4 or 5 year projection. I listened to Carol's team speak the other day when we were meeting with a company about, well, if we know that you need 400 jobs in the next 5 years, you might not have a cohort for one specific program, but we also know that Alstom needs 400 or 500 jobs in the next 4 or 5 years. They don't have a total for a cohort, but maybe together we can bring everyone towards a cohort. And so, you know, that conduit piece is really, really important. And I think that over the years and to the investment and to the concentration and the commitments of being Indigenous minded, if is that a word? Having an Indigenous mind of that lens adds to your team, your business, and your long-term goals. You know, we were all at an event not too long ago where one of the resource agencies, where companies locally wanted to do a land acknowledgement and was panicking around the room to find someone to do a land acknowledgement. It was quite clear that that company has had no cultural exposure, training, and he said to me, listen, quite frankly, I'm an Italian, I'm an Italian immigrant who moved to Canada. Actually, they moved to Quebec, so I'm not even sure how much culture they got in Quebec. You know what I mean? Like, and true honesty and vulnerability, to recognize that vulnerability, and I think that's where the college plays a really critical role. We have an Indigenous Associate Dean of Indigenous Studies. She is extremely knowledgeable in helping with designing curriculum. Carol's team has experts throughout that team in developing curriculum. But really take a look at your own companies, your own businesses, and your hiring practices. And I'm just quick second, Jordan. I'm going to tell you that I've had the opportunities I've had because someone saw in me what I didn't see in myself. And when Union Gas came to me and said, we have a job for you, and I said, I don't know anything about the gas company. And they said, no, but we'll teach you about gas. What we need is your Indigenous lens and your ability to build relationships. And they polished me and gave me an opportunity that I never ever thought. And you know, when they sent me my offer of an employment, in all honesty, it was my first time being offered anything at 6 figures. And my husband said, pretend you have to think about it. And I said, screw that. Because as Indigenous people, we are not used to making 6 figures. That's not something that has ever come our way. So, you know, those opportunities, and we need to tell our young people that those opportunities are there now.
Great, thank you, Wendy, for that insight. Okay, so Charles, Eeyore. Next question's for you, and I'm setting you up with the retention piece here. So, does the data support the idea that businesses with diverse, Indigenous, inclusive workforces actually see better retention rates in the North? Is there a retention dividend for doing this right?
Okay, so first, just so you know, ER was given to me by a vice president of a chamber of commerce, so it seems an appropriate place to tell that story. The reason I asked Jordan to make sure you mentioned the word retention is the simple fact that no matter how good an employer you are, you're going to have retention problems. Sorry. So yes, you should do all the things that Peter and Wendy just talked about, and I'm going to talk about a few others. But the harsh reality is that in a labor shortage, retention is going to be an ongoing issue. Your primary objective as an employer should be to be an employer of choice, to be able to attract the people, to replace the people you know you were going to lose. Not through any fault of yours, not through any fault of your industry. The simple fact is there's lots of people out there offering 6 figures hours. And sometimes you're not going to be able to play with their 6 figures versus your 6 figures. So that's the harsh reality of that. That being said, there are things that absolutely, it is very clear that to be an employer of choice, to be an employer that the grapevine out there in the local communities are prepared when they ask their cousins, who should I go to work for in Thunder Bay, and your company's name will be on their lips. Yes, there are absolutely things that you can do to do those types of things, including figure out where you should post your jobs. And who you should talk to, and spending some time at the college with those folks on the ground. But there are other things that you can do in a very concrete way. Wages matter. You all know that, but the simple fact is that the people who come to work for you, you hire them to make a profit for you, they come to work for you to make a profit for themselves. And so wages matter to the extent that you can address those, but there are other things you can do on a flexible basis to recognize the reality in which they live as community members. So there's things like the attachment to family and the definition of family in an Indigenous context is much broader than many Canadians are familiar with. And so to take a look at your sick leave policies and your family emergency leave policies and to extend them if you can, to understand that they may need more time in a given year if there are crises in their communities. That the time that they take might be 5 days instead of 3. So having policies that allow you to do that to the extent you can. And don't get me wrong, I've run a small business where I've only had 4 employees, so I understand what those kind of leave policies mean. But the value in return and the loyalty you get back is often more than equal to the investment of that exercise. The second thing that I would mention, and it's something that we do, many Canadian companies do and many companies around the world do, is recognize that international folks who are not necessarily Canadians, are coming in with a different kind of set of holidays and celebrations annually. And so we set up things like flexible holiday days where, if you are a Muslim, for example, or if you're Jewish, you can take, instead of the Canadian approved government holidays, you can have a couple extra days so that you can make sure that in your feast days that you're not working. Or I've had a couple of people work for me who like to celebrate their birthday, so they use those flex days for their birthdays. But making sure that those flex days are available for Indigenous members of your team, because there are other days that are important to them in their cultural context that don't align with the standard kind of holidays. So those are a couple of kind of practical things that you can undertake. Yes, they cost money, but the simple reality is that we're in an environment where those folks coming to work for you have made way more choices than they ever had before, and so it's going to cost you a little bit more to keep them. A couple other things that I was thinking about this morning is, there are lots of employers who have looked at things like housing subsidies and that type of exercise. We live in a rental marketplace here in Thunder Bay. So, looking at building a relationship between your company and some of the rental companies for a 5% discount on the monthly rent might be an opportunity to explore. If you don't have the resources as a smaller, medium-sized company to kind of subsidize mortgages or accept those kind of things, there's a way to make you attractive as a company who's interested not just in how you do at work, but how you're doing in a secure your lifestyle. The other thing that you can take a look at is one of the things that many potential renters run into is the challenge around rental insurance. Because of course, the folks who own the buildings are a little bit nervous. I don't know you just moved here from X. And so having that rental insurance in place is a way to make them a more attractive tenant, which then makes them a more effective employee. So you can take a look at the potential for subsidization of that, work with your local insurance company to see if there's a way that you can get a discounted rate for rental insurance for your employees. Again, non-wage based incentives that reflect and affect their lives. Because what it sends is 2 messages. One, you're thinking broad and you're thinking about benefiting them for coming to work for you. So I think that's a couple of things from a practical applied perspective that I just tried to think about that I thought I'd mention today. Lots of other ideas. I'm not the only one that kind of thinks about these things, but start thinking about what can you do to make their life outside of the workplace a little bit better so that they understand that there's a trade-off, that you support them and that they in turn support you. Wendy's waiting. So hand that
No,
over.
I was pointing to Jordan. I think, am I on? Being conscientious that my boss is in the room and the head of HR. Hunting is very important to First Nations people. And sometimes, just because I'm in the bush doesn't mean I'm not working, because I've invested in Starlink. But, that early morning hunt, come home work, and then the evening hunt is a reality for us come the fall and duck season. And I appreciate the fact that you mentioned that flexibility, because even if you have a 3-day compassionate leave when someone passes, well, we have a 4-day fire. So the 3 days automatically don't work right off the top. So it's challenging. And just because my auntie passed away, but she's not, and you're asking me to prove how is she my auntie? Well, she's my auntie, but she might not be my blood auntie, but she's always been my auntie, like Peter's sometimes Uncle Peter. He raises his eyebrows. But the other part of it is that the reality is that Thunder Bay for First Nations people is viewed as a very racist community. And everybody needs to do their part to fix that. So allies are extremely important. So when you're at a table and someone is making a racist comment, call it out. Because it doesn't work if you call it out 3-4 days later. Just challenge someone's thinking. Really? Is that really what you're thinking? Is that really, did you just say that? Sometimes just making people conscientious of the comments that they're making. 3 of my children are very stereotypically First Nation looking. It has been such a challenge for them to find apartments in the city, because the minute they go to rent an apartment and someone sees that they're Native, they get all kinds of reasons why they can't come. It's so funny because I've been, confused and interpreted as being Greek or Italian, all these other nationalities. I go with them to rent an apartment and they're all of a sudden going to give them the apartment. But when they went on their own, they wouldn't even talk to them. And so for companies, you might need to help accommodate, because I'm being honest, landlords are not renting to our First Nations young people. They hesitate. Thankfully, my kids got an apartment and their landlord is First Nations. So she's been awesome. And I said to them, don't ever mess this up. But at the same time, I want to, again, with the college, we have the Apwin Student Lounge, and we have grown our First Nations, our Indigenous community with our students so large that if you send us your job postings, our students get them right away too. Through email, through their contact, they get all of those postings as well, so just wanted that.
So add a little context to what Charles is saying there, and Charles, you almost sounded like my board there for a second. Because we are provincially mandated opportunity that we're working on, and our board has really stated to us, you have to accommodate our community members. We're an Indigenous organization, respecting their culture, respecting their language, hunting season. Somebody passed away, like you said, all of our communities have really connected relationships, no matter if they've been here. My kids call my buddy, he's a non-Indigenous guy, their uncle. That's their uncle, because he was my friend for so many years. That's their uncle now. But just understanding that and making sure you understand that. One other thing I wanted to, on the first question, I'll circle back to that one a little bit. Piece of paper for 1 second. I just want to read her notes. No. But the thing is, you got to understand, when young people are coming from our communities, you give them a piece of paper or you give them an engine. Read this piece of paper. They'll be sitting there for a long time. Fix this engine. Next thing you know, the engine's done. Still struggling to read this paper. So understanding that they do have talent, and it's not based on a piece of paper. It's based on what they have learned in their community, because they have to either build a home, or build an engine, or repair an engine, or fix a car, whatever it may be. So the industry has to understand that. They don't have a piece of paper that said they're a red seal, but they have the hands that says they can do the job.
That's great. Thank you, Wendy, Charles, and Peter, for those tangible insights. Okay, so shifting the conversation into our final part now. How are we doing for time? Just 1 o'clock? We have until
15 minutes.
Okay, 15 minutes. And maybe we can build in some time for a couple questions as well. But so let's talk about some of the projects that we see coming down the pipeline from your perspectives right now that will be driving the economic activity for my son and those of others 20 years down the road. Peter, first question for you. We all know CMO is overseeing the Waasigan transmission line in this massive project. A two-part question. What do you see coming down the pipeline for other massive infrastructure projects? And the follow-up to that is what is the trickle-down opportunity for SMEs to get a piece of that pie here in the region?
So you look at the opportunity on the Waasigan transmission line, it's just kind of a continuation of the Wate, continuation of the East-West line. There's so many opportunities. Like when we developed the Waasigan transmission line, it was about building our prosperity opportunities, for lack of better words right now, but building that opportunity to be a part of those opportunities that are on the transmission line itself. If you look at what else is in the queue, you know that all these transmission lines are being built, mining activity is gonna increase because they have, as Craig, my business manager says, they have someplace to plug into now. You know, and the reality is it's a big long extension cord helps mining activities really grow and prosper. Been going back to Alstom, and they continue to develop and build opportunities in the region. A lot of our community members don't want to be on the line, don't want to be mechanics, don't want to be heavy equipment operators, but want to be, you know, really business managers, and building that relationship and helping them get to that point. And I use Winnie's analogy. I never got six figures till I got this job, so, you know, teaching people how that opportunities can bring prosperity and opportunity to you, not only to yourself, but to your family, and makes you feel good about what you can do and what you can provide for your family. So thinking about the growth in Northwestern Ontario and how industry, I used a tool, and the only tool that I had when I took over this job is creating a JV with partners, industry. And is it a tool that I like? No, it's not, but it's a tool that I had to utilize at that very moment. I'm trying to change that trend so that we're leading the project, and we're leading the industry, and we're building the opportunities. When we look at our relationship with our JV partners, one of them's in the room, Matt, here from Northline. You know, just having that solid understanding about the obligation to each other, understanding the obligation about what we can do together, and respecting each other in that path forward. As I told Hydro once, had asked me a question early on, how is it that CMO is a First Nation contracting opportunity? And what I had said to them, how can I be a First Nation constructor when I'm a brand new company without any financial resources? When I took this job, there was no money. And my wife told me I was nuts. But building off that, we have built into where we are today, and we continue to grow. And we want to grow with the industry. We want to grow with the mining activities, the forestry again. Unfortunately, but it will come back in the homes that are being developed in the region. The opportunities also, how do we integrate them? How do we make sure that they have that open door policy so that we can build that relationship? We continue to build those relationships with anybody, any partner. We have, I think we have 40 partners now, and building that relationship with each and every one of those partners. Doesn't matter what they provide, whether it's heavy equipment or mechanic or electricians or power line erectors, or it doesn't matter. We want to make sure that people are a part of it. And so many opportunities are coming in Northwest Ontario. As I said, and our relationship with the college has been very good, really good relationship that builds that trust in each other, and building our journey together, and building that relationship together so that our folks take advantage of the educational world, so they're not forgotten about, so they're not the guy on the shovel or the broom, sort of the guy in the management, and we try to make sure that people get up to the management level. So it's so important to understand that.
That's great. Thank you for that insight, Peter. Okay, so next question is for you, Charles. So MPI looks at regional governance and economic growth. So when we look at these major partnerships that Peter is leading and talking about today, what is the long-term impact on the tax base and municipal health for Thunder Bay and our region? Why should businesses, a business owner completely unrelated to, let's say, the mining sector, care about a transmission line that's being built 200 kilometers away?
So, simple answer to that question is something that every business owner will know, which is who's going to buy your stuff and where are they going to get the money. So they're going to work for that transmission line, and their kids are going to be your next generation of employees. So yeah, it matters. You can have a virtuous circle just as you can have a black hole to suck yourself down into. And so the goal is that as the region grows, then the city grows, and as the city grows, so do the local businesses. So I think that I don't have to preach to anybody who's running a for-profit business that economic activity within a certain range is good, period, full stop. Because you know that they're gonna, if you run a hardware store, they're gonna be buying stuff to fix their houses. If you run a housing, if you're a realtor, they're gonna buy houses from you. If you're a grocery store, they're gonna come buy that. If they're a restaurateur and they've got a 6-figure salary from the brand new transmission line, they're coming to buy a steak, or those kind of things. So that's pretty straightforward. And so I'm gonna cheat, take 35 seconds and send you this message because they asked Peter about growing economic opportunities. So here's my 15-word message to you. Make a buck from the boomers. That's the simple message for the next 30 years. Make a buck from the boomers. That industry is growing. It has grown massively in the last 20 years, and it's going to go exponentially for the next 25. So yeah, you don't have to drive a tractor or push a broom to have an opportunity. If you're service oriented, if you're sales oriented, if you're people oriented, huge opportunities in that area. So lots of choice and exercise. And the beautiful thing is the people are here and they're not likely to go anywhere. All you need to do is look at the housing crisis that we have here. A large portion of it is because old people like the house they're in and they don't care that there's 6 bedrooms and they only need 1. So they're not going anywhere. And so your opportunity is to figure out a way to keep them in that house and make them happy. And we have lots of opportunities. So from the perspective of business, there you go. Make a buck from the boomers is the message I want you to take away from today. And by the way, the boomer can live in Ignace and take the money from them there.
That's great. I'm gonna have to remember that line. Very poignant. Okay, sorry, Wendy, did you have a comment? Oh, I have one more question for you, but you can make the comment.
Wendy's just checking her wallet to make sure I didn't steal it.
Or Peter, does anybody want to add to
Well,
what?
I just don't know if I'm going into your next question.
Charlotte wants you to behave and just focus.
Okay, let me ask one more question and then we can have some.
Before you ask one more question, I think you could go to Charles's answer and you look at Northwestern Ontario in its entirety. Where's the reason? Going back to the trickle down impacts, and the trickle down impacts. If you look at what's going on in Northwestern Ontario with the transmission lines, where's those guys buying the gas? Where's those guys buying the food? Where's those guys getting all their supplies from? They're not getting it from our partners within our communities. There is some communities that do provide a lot of gas, but other supplies, they're in the municipalities. That's a trickle down effect. When we build the industry, we build it not in the way I look at things. I build things for Northwestern Ontario. And I don't just build things for us as First Nation. I want to have an impact on Northwestern Ontario. That's where I live. That's where I come from. If we have a healthy community, healthy environment, and helping people get into a great path of life, that's the trickle down effect.
That's great. Thank you for that thought, Peter. So, Wendy, I'm going to give you your final question, and then if you want to find a way to weave any other comments into this, by all means. But so as these large-scale projects move forward, how is Confederation College pivoting its Indigenous relations strategy to ensure our local workforce is actually the one building them? How do we avoid the fly-in, fly-out model that takes the economic benefits out of our region?
Yeah, you know what, as a municipal leader and part of the NOMA, to Peter's point, we worry about all of Northwestern Ontario. And from a college perspective, was it 550,000 square kilometers of catchment area? It's a big area. And the college contributes, I think you said in your comments today, Michelle, over 700 million in economic impact, just from the college perspective alone. And so when we talk about our municipalities, the fly-in, fly-out piece has been unavoidable to some degree because we haven't been able to fill some of those jobs. But how do we avoid it? We avoid it by building local capacity. And I can't say that enough, whether through partnership and through relationships. And with the college, we mobilize our training into the communities, and we build that capacity, build the local capacity, and concentrate on building that local capacity in the First Nations as well as in our municipalities. we deliver training at the college that connects industry to Indigenous communities. We have Indigenous partners. Lori's here, Deschamps is here, from President of Oshkosh-Bemachwin. She's one of our partners. Peter Chimo is one of our partners. Seven Gens is one of our partners. We have relationships with 88 of the 133 First Nations in this province. And when we talk about the catchment area of Confederation College, we have 8 campuses across this region. We have relationships in all of those regions. We have people that work for us in every one of those communities, in all 8 areas, plus we have people that are working in the communities. We offer flexible programming so that it doesn't have to be always come into the city. We can come out to the region. We offer the opportunity to build capacity that's local, so that someday we're at a point where it doesn't always have to be the, no offense to the East Coast, but I know there's a lot of people flying in two weeks on, 2 weeks off from all over the place, not just the East Coast, but from all over, right? And the one thing that Doug Ford did a favor to all of us here in Northwestern Ontario was rise the profile of the Ring of Fire. He's done that. It's kind of a double-edged sword in some respects, but this limelight and this spotlight is on Northwestern Ontario now, and I don't think that it's going to go away, because if you think about what's happening in Ignace, for example, nuclear waste management, Confederation College also has a partner with them. You know, we have the Waasigan line, we've done the East-West Tie line, there's now the Greenstone line, we're talking about LT2 projects that have come through to some of our communities, and that's not even mentioning how many mines that are in the catchment area of Confederation College that we also have relationships with. So the message is build local capacity in order to try to reduce, I don't think you'll totally get rid of the 2-in, 2-out, fly-out situations, but the fact of the matter is the rest of the province is going to start, and we've seen it. We've seen the creeping in, even from a college perspective. We've seen all of the colleges. Everyone knows the situation of the colleges in Ontario right now. There's 23 other colleges other than Confed. And you know what? I was saying to Michelle in some of the meetings I've had to be in, I'm like, they're competitors. They're gonna start coming in and saying, hey, I'll do a partnership with you. Well, remember, the Confederation College was here first. And we're partners with everybody in this area. So before Northern or Canada, and no offense to any of our colleagues out there, but we're local, this is our backyard, and I'd say the same thing from a municipal and from a First Nations perspective. This is our backyard, and keep that in mind first.
Great, that's a great final note.
Sorry, we were here first.
Well,
Just want to think about the impacts on municipalities, no matter what municipality you come from. Look at how the impacts of First Nation folks in Thunder Bay and the economic spin-offs from all the folks that come and live and work and travel through this region. It's probably $500 million. Last time I heard it was about $500 million impact. You know, it's so important to understand that we can bring prosperity not only to ourselves, we can bring it to municipalities in the region. So understanding that and really building off that relationship.
that's great, thank you.
And I think it's fair to say, like, this is a municipal election. Challenge your candidates, not only for the city of Thunder Bay, for the region as well. Challenge them and see what they are doing and what they're hoping to do. It's a big task to build our municipalities in the region and to bring. I grew up in Nipawin. There was 3,000 of us at one time. I spend my summers down there for the most part. My parents still live on the First Nation. I think we're under 1,000 down there now. Like, you know, the prosperity and the drivers are not so much. They're trying to reinvent themselves too. But at the same time, I think we heard from the mayor of Red Lake at one point that there was, any given time, there's 300-400 jobs available in Red Lake. Well, you know, if you haven't been to Red Lake, go there. Maybe go in the summertime first. It's beautiful. And, you know, we have a campus there too. And
You can afford a house there.
you can afford a house there for sure, right? And the other piece that I wanted to add is that with the skilled trades piece, and to Peter's point earlier, young people are way more impatient now, right? And no offense, but the skilled trades get them in the workforce way quicker and earning money way quicker. And I find that that's a real desire. So our trades programs, not only can we offer some of that training in community, but also the trades programs in partnerships with different companies and at the college. But they get quicker and get educated quicker and trained quicker, and then out on the job even quicker, right? So they're spending those money on those steaks and those stuff around our community. So I bought 2 steaks in Nippigan last weekend.
How do you like your steak, Wendy?
It was good.
They were good.
Actually, my husband said it wasn't bad. $20 a steak.
Oh,
That's not too bad.
Nice. All right. Well, I guess I'll have to stop by the Nippian grocery store on the way out next time. So, in an effort to be respectful for everyone's day and times, we thank you so much for joining us and on your lunches and giving your time to listen to our distinguished guests. On a final note, I just want to thank you, Charles, Wendy, and Peter. Again, I said this off the top, but your combined years of service to our community and region is absolutely humbling. So please join me in a round of applause. With that, I'm going to give the mic back to Charlotte.
Thank you, Jordan. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Peter. I can tell you guys had a lot of fun just in the prep meetings for this. I'm sure we could go for another half an hour or more, but thank you so much for your time today and for everything you continue to do in our community to help to grow our workforce and our community capacity. So thank you for that.